All right. Welcome, everybody, to our next installment for Food for Thought at 1210. We appreciate the families that were able to hop on and check us out today. Again, we'll be recording this session and sharing it out with families when it's done as well. But I am super excited to talk about today's topic. It's something that I'm super passionate about and very excited about. I feel like if I could play the Space Odyssey music, theme music, I would do it right now as I reveal the name of the book is Mindset from Carol Dweck. In a previous life, I was a high school teacher. And I used to question, why is it that I have kids coming into my high school class, they're putting their heads on their desk and they're not engaged in learning? And like any good high school teacher, I blamed the middle school. And so when I was in the middle school interning as an administrator, guess what? I saw sixth graders doing the same thing. So like any good administrator, I blamed the administrators at the lower level at elementary. Now I'm an elementary principal. And as I look and see some of the kids that have some of these same traits, they disengage, they're not interested in what's going on in the classroom. You have to start questioning what causes a child to become basically a non-learner, which means just like not engaged in the learning process and not trying. This book, Mindset from Carol Dweck, absolutely opened my eyes to some of the things that some of our kids begin to think about themselves and why that turns them, away from the learning process. So we are going to talk about a growth mindset today. And like I said, very passionate about it. I'm currently doing my doctoral work through Shippensburg and Millersville. And as I'm going through the work, my focus is on the research behind growth mindset. So I don't say this to brag, but I have easily read close to 70 or 80 research studies about the topic, what works, what doesn't work. And I'm excited to share this with the families today. Our goal is really to talk not so much about all the details and the ins and outs of a growth mindset, but what can you do as a parent to really reinforce the message that our school is trying to promote to your kids. So to start, here's some common things or common statements that are associated with a fixed and a growth mindset. To summarize, a fixed mindset really is the belief that you are born with certain talents and abilities, and there's not much you can do about it. In other words, my potential is predetermined. I was born this way, and this is how it's always going to be. A growth mindset says that my effort and attitude determine my abilities. I'm in control of what I can learn, and I can always improve if I'm willing to put in the work and to work on the skill or the new learning that I'm attempting to learn as a learner in a school. So you can see some of the statements that are associated with a fixed and a growth mindset on the screen. I'm not going to read them to you, but to summarize, if I have to try, if I have a fixed mindset, maybe that's a sign that I wasn't really born to do this. I don't like feedback because it just shows me things I'm not good at. When somebody else is successful, I'm not really applauding that. It's just another sign that I'm not that person. And again, it kind of puts me into this mold of I'm born a certain way and there's not a lot I can do about it. Growth mindset says, in order to learn, I've got to give effort. Yeah, challenge accepted. I'm inspired by the success of others. And I love feedback because that helps me ultimately achieve my goals and get to where I want to be. So why am I so passionate about this topic? Why are we as educators drawn to this? For me, I have to tell you, this is the key that unlocks learning. This is the mindset we want. The kids that are sitting in our desks, we want kids believing that their road has not been paved for them. Yes, there are certain obstacles and a certain scenario that we've been dealt in life. We have to acknowledge that, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But it's important how we play that hand. It's important to know that, yes, there are some challenges, but the road in front of me has yet to be determined. So we want kids sitting in our desks that believe that and that their actions support it. There's a lot of talk right now in education and in society in general about equity. To me, as an educator, there's no bigger equitable force than having kids know that regardless of your life circumstances and regardless of the challenges that you have in front of you, you can pave the road in front of you. So it's a big equity piece for me. And also it's a big deal to let our kids know that, guess what? You're going to have to experience challenges in life. I don't know about all of you, but if I could just speak frankly, like some of the challenges that we've experienced in our lives right now, they're really stinking hard. So we want kids that are resilient. We want kids that just don't throw their hands in the air and say, this is too difficult, I'll never be able to fill in the blank. I mean, you don't have to look more than right now, the announcement I know coming from the president's office today about, making the decision to no longer import oil from Russia. Things are going to get hard. Things are going to continue to get harder in our economy. We want kids with the mindset that say, challenge accepted, regardless of my circumstances. I know I can overcome this if I put in the right amount of effort and stick with my goals. I have to tell you that the research says about a growth mindset, the group that seems to benefit the most the most from having this mindset are really those kids that come from some difficult backgrounds. So there may be some difficult economic challenges in your family right now. Maybe times are tight a little bit. Maybe a mom or a dad or a guardian lost their job. Maybe there was some trauma. Maybe there was some domestic violence. Maybe there were some things that have come out of COVID-19 that were really hard for our kids to deal with. Those kids we have to reach out and put our energies to, because they could benefit the most from this mindset. It's very easy to fall into the mindset that, there's so much out of their control that there's not much they can do about it. So the research says those kids who do have that uphill climb, maybe your child has a specific learning disability, this is the subgroup that benefits the most, to really keep that mindset that says, I know things are hard, but if I put in the time and the energy and I try different strategies, ultimately I'll make that growth that I'm looking to make in that specific area. So what do we do here at Wrightsville? I don't want to spend so much time on this because the topic's really about parents and what you can do at home. But to summarize, we do 3 big things. Number 1, we're pretty explicit in our instruction about a growth mindset. We have 2 pretty popular characters that we revisit frequently, Race Car Rodney and Mr. Fixed Mindset. Carol Dweck, in that book that I showed you at the beginning, she said that speed and perfection are the enemies of learning. I'll say that again. Speed and perfection are the enemies of learning. This is where Rodney and Mr. Fixed Mindset come from. A lot of our kids rush through their work to be done first because they believe speed equals intelligence. That's not accurate. So Rodney races around the classrooms, he races around the hallways, and he tells kids that if you're done first, you are the smartest. Everybody else is just, the first loser. So Rodney is the evolution of that mindset that we try to kind of bring to light for our kids and try to say, like, this is not the way we want you to think when it comes to being intelligent. Mr. Fixed Mindset, if his life motto is pretty much, if at first you don't succeed, give up. You're born a certain way and there's not much you can do about it. So Mr. Fixed Mindset never learned to ride a bike. He never learned to do his multiplication table because it was hard at first. And in his mind, you're born a certain way and you don't give the effort to do it. We talk a lot about the brain because there's a lot of research that says, tell kids how the brain works. Talk about the mystery and the beauty that are your neurons, the billions of neurons in your brain. Talk about where we experience emotions. Talk about prefrontal lobe thinking and the ability to regulate our emotions and to make good decisions. So we are very explicit in teaching the brain. And in fact, next week is Brain Awareness Week. And we're excited that all 3 elementary schools are going to be doing some things with that. And we really hope to get the conversation started about all of the amazing things that encompass our brain and what's in our control and what's so much not in our control. So we're excited to do that. Very explicit with our instruction. We try to inspire. Every year we have different mottos. We've have a challenge accepted banner that kind of went away for COVID because we asked kids to slap it on the way into school every day. It's probably going to come back soon. I hope so. We had tenacious learning a year ago, and this year we say, I choose to learn. And if you look at every letter in I choose to learn, look and listen for details, engage with effort, acquire feedback, raise your hand, and neurons need practice. All of these letters are speaking to the growth mindset. And finally, consistent messaging. We did a school-wide read aloud called The Wild Robot. And what a great example of a growth mindset in action. A robot that had a tough circumstance. He was stranded on an island, Roz, and she had to find ways to create solutions, like, for example, communicating with the animals on the island. We try to be very consistent with this messaging. We'd love to talk about resilient trees. We love when we bring in a BMX assembly to ask our presenters, hey, did you just wake up one day and you knew how to do a 360 off a ramp? Or was this something you had to practice? Tell us about your failures. We're really consistent with this messaging. I also want to talk about the badging program that we have in kindergarten and first grade. This is district-wide. I think this is a big message sender to our kids, that it's all about your learning. It's about your growth. It's about achieving that badge. It's not so much about the big paper and pencil test or the letter grade, but really focusing on learning. And finally, I'll say one way that we cultivate a growth mindset is through restorative practices and dealing with student discipline. That's my area, right? So we already have done a food for thought on that, but it's really important to send the message to kids that, like, you know what, we're going to mess up. We're going to fail to meet expectations. But how do we address that? Is it just you are a nail, I'm a hammer, and we punish? I don't think so. I don't think that's what's best for kids. We talk about where the mistake was made. We talk about different strategies, ways we can handle it differently, and we focus on the teaching part of that. I love this quotation from one of the studies that I was reviewing from Thomas et al. In 2019. And they said, a fair environment where consequences are predictable and appropriate can serve as a mechanism to bond children to adults and establish a growth mindset where they believe their hard work will be compensated. So being able to be fair and consistent in creating this climate where relationships are important to say, if I talk out two different sides of my mouth, yes, growth mindset's about your learning, but every time you make a mistake, I'm going to punish that severely. I think that we would be sending mixed messages. So I love this quote about creating the type of environment where a growth mindset can truly grow. All right. So what can you do as a parent to support a growth mindset at home? I've got a couple things I want you to take away. Number one, tell your kids who they are. And this is what I mean by that. I love this quote from Scheffler, and he said, children do not have any way of assessing their own powers at the onset. They're not born with this idea of like, this is who I am. These are my abilities. These are my limitations. They learn what they can by absorbing the beliefs of their elders, teachers, parents, as the confirmation of potential that the child did not believe it had. Such mastery is facilitated by the teacher's display of faith in the student's potential, which overcomes the student's groundless skepticism. So they might be drawn towards skepticism and to say like, I can't do this, I don't have this ability. But when you as a parent tell them, no, you're a learner, you overcome challenges, this is who you are. When you don't get the result you want, this is what you do next. Telling kids who they are is really important to developing that growth mindset, because they look to you and they look to me and they look to their teachers constantly to say, how do you see me? And if we use our words but not our actions to support that growth mindset, they may not ultimately believe in that growth mindset and truly acquire it and put it into action. So tell them who they are. Use those words with your kids. Tell them that they're an overcomer. Tell them that they're a kid that you believe can overcome challenges, and when things get hard, that they can turn up the effort to reach their goals. So that's number one. Number two, our words matter a lot. And this is a big eye-opener for me when I read Dweck's work initially. So here are some great phrases that I know I've used, I bet you have used with your kid. And the book really kind of flips this over to say, although they are really good intending phrases, they actually could trigger a fixed mindset in your kid. So here they are. Hey, you're a natural at this. You are so smart. You're gifted at this. Or maybe when they're struggling in math, you say the phrase, you know what, I wasn't good at math either. Or this just isn't your thing. Or you know what, I know you just can't do this. When we use some of these phrases, we are tripping kids into a fixed mindset thinking. So for example, I've been in meetings with parents where maybe we're talking about some struggles that their child is having in math, and the mom or dad might say, you know what, hey, it's okay, man, I wasn't good at math either. What a great statement. You're showing empathy, you're trying to relate, but this statement can actually trigger this fixed mindset in the child to say, well, look, I love my dad. I know my dad's been really successful in life and he wasn't really good at math. So maybe that's just who I am. So maybe I'm not going to engage in the effort and try as hard because, maybe that's just how I'm born. Now, I don't expect a kindergartner to verbalize that, but subconsciously, these thoughts might be occurring when they hear some of this language. Again, you're so smart. What's wrong with that, Mr. Enders? Not much, but please know that when you're talking about the intelligence piece, what we might be robbing them is the willingness to engage in something that might be difficult. Oh, I don't want to do this because I might not be right. And mom or dad or grandma might not think I'm smart anymore. So I'm just going to keep doing the things I'm really good at. When your kid brings home their first painting and you're saying, you're a natural, you're a Picasso, and maybe they've drawn your family or your house. The idea is that I guarantee you the child subconsciously might be thinking about, well, the next time I get a chance to paint whatever I want, I'm going to paint a house again or our family again because I love the praise that says I'm natural. My parents love the Picasso. They think I'm a Picasso when I draw our family. So I'm going to keep drawing the family over and over again because I don't want to disappoint them. I want them to believe that I'm a natural. So again, these are some phrases you want to try to avoid when you're being really intentional with developing a growth mindset. So what are some phrases you can use? How about this? Instead of praising intelligence, praise the effort. You should be proud of your effort. You worked really hard at this. You know what I'm most proud of? That you didn't give up when you weren't successful the first time. Hey buddy, I know you didn't make the team this year, but let's try another strategy. Maybe we have to get some lessons. Maybe we have to do some other work so that next year when we come back out, we're going to be ready and you'll make that team. Hey, this was hard, so challenge accepted. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're not incorporating the word yet into your vocabulary, do that now. You just can't do this yet. Yet is a powerful phrase. It tells kids that you're not defined, it's not done, but maybe there will be more opportunities in the future for you to grow. So yep, math is hard. You have not learned your multiplication table yet, but we're going to keep practicing and find the right strategy to do that. So our words matter. It's a great reminder for our families at home. Number 3, model the mindset. Show your kids that you are not a finished product. So when there's something that is difficult or you don't know how to do it, show your kids how you handled it. So we have a little phrase around here at Wrightsville, just Google it, bro. One of our 4th grade students made this drawing, or actually put this on canvas and brought it into her classroom. This is just saying like, hey, you know what? I don't know how to change the headlight in my car, but I Googled it the other day and found a great YouTube video exactly for my make and model. So I have to tell you, like, I'm not the handiest guy around the house, but what I've learned through YouTube has really helped us out a little bit. So yeah, I learned how to change my headlight. Now, I didn't know that you're not supposed to finger up and get oil all over the bulb, because my bulbs kept burning out, and they made fun of me at Advanced Auto when I kept coming in to get the same headlight. They said, are you by chance touching the bulb with your hands when you replace? I said, yeah. They said, yeah, you're not smart. And I was like, well, they didn't show that to me on YouTube. So now I've learned how to change my headlight and not have it keep blowing out by making sure I wear gloves when I put on the light, so that it doesn't keep burning out. But model that for your kids. Tell them about that. Say, I didn't know how to do that yet. I found out, check this out. Look what I'm able to accomplish now. The other thing is we want to talk about is, how do you respond to setbacks and challenges? I recently showed kids this graphic. It's something that we pump in our lobby all the time, the iceberg illusion. Social media, life, they only tend to focus on what is visible, and we forget what is invisible. We forget that Olympian, yes, they earned a gold medal, but did you know they had several setbacks and failures, and they had to make a lot of sacrifices and experience disappointment? Highlight those things for your kids. Let them see those pieces, because in a fake world that social media creates, I think our kids are losing some of these parts. They just see all the success and all the good things. We got to make sure that we're highlighting this in our own life, the challenges that we're experiencing and how we're overcoming those. So model the mindset for your kids. Finally, this is a big one. What happens when your child, falls short or fails to meet an expectation? There's a couple different responses we can have. This is my favorite. I am a travel baseball coach in the summer, and I have to tell you, this is where so many of us want to go, especially in competitive sports. So if my kid strikes out, you know whose fault it is? It's that stinking umpire that doesn't have a good strike zone. I can't believe he called that pitch a strike. Or how about that ref that was reffing the wrestling event, and he gave that kid a reversal, and that was not a reversal. So we lose our mind and we begin to blame why our kid wasn't successful. I laugh at my soccer friends. I've got my daughter played travel soccer when she was younger. We would get blown out 6-1 in a game, and to hear parents at halftime or at the end of the game saying that ref stole the game from us because they blew that offsides call, it was one call. We lost 6-1. That wasn't the reason that we lost the game, but we look to blame. And when our kids hear this, that robs them of a growth mindset. It's not my fault that I lost. It wasn't that I didn't train hard enough or I don't have the skills yet that I need. It's the ref's fault. It's the umpire's fault. It's the other team's fault. It's the field's fault. Fill in the blank. Do we look to blame? Careful of that language. It could rob the growth mindset. Number 2, sometimes we just lower expectations. There's a phrase called the lawnmower parent, and I've done this a few times myself, where we'd say, here's an obstacle. So what do? My kid's not getting an A in class, so clearly it's the teacher's fault. So we go and we email the teacher and we say, you're not doing your job. I'll eliminate that obstacle or that challenge, and I will take my kid through and just lower expectations. And so this idea of a lawnmower parent is something that I have to check myself for frequently as well. What are ways that we try to basically get rid of any obstacle or challenge in front of our kids? They need to experience those. It's okay to struggle sometimes, especially in an educational setting. What are ways that we can encourage them to push through that to achieve at the end? And finally, this is the response that we should have. It's the try again response. Empathy and encouragement. Man, that really stinks. That hurt, didn't it? It hurt when you didn't get the score that you wanted or didn't do well in that big game over this weekend. I'm sorry that happened. It stinks. What are ways that we're going to readjust our strategies and go back at it in a different way? The empathy and encouragement is important to developing the growth mindset for kids. So finally, what I want to tell you guys is that the growth mindset is not unrealistic expectations. It's not everybody gets a trophy. We have to have optimism, but cautious optimism. In other words, we can tell kids, yeah, you can achieve a lot. You can do a lot more than you give yourself credit for. But what's important is the work ethic and finding the right strategy to help us be successful. Sometimes I have kids saying, I'm not very good at spelling. I can never do good on my spelling test. I say, well, how do you study? How do you practice? Oftentimes I hear, well, I don't, or I use my flashcards while I watch TV. So I talk about find a different strategy. Maybe have mom or dad practice them with you. Maybe spell out the letters on a piece of paper or on a salt tray just to practice and do something different so that the next time you have that spelling test, you're ready and you're prepared. All right. Well, that's the growth mindset. I hope you found some of those suggestions valuable. I look forward to having further conversations with parents that are interested in learning about it. Very quickly, before we go, I just want to highlight a couple of the events coming up here at Wrightsville. We have Math March Madness. This is the one time kids are allowed to be a Rodney. But we're looking for some parent volunteers. We have several already. We're looking for proctors. You're going to have the flashcards. You're going to show the kids the card. You'll have the answer in front of you. You'll tally it after the round so that teams can compete and continue to advance. That's here at the end of March, starting on March 22nd. I've already mentioned Brain Awareness Week next week. Super excited to share that with our kids. I want to tell you our PTO, we are looking for someone to chair our fund run next year. This is a big event. It's a big fundraiser. If you're a parent that can't volunteer during the school day, this is something you could help us out with, because a lot of this work is done behind the scenes, just in terms of working with the website to establish a goal, creating incentives for kids, and then working with me to communicate those. So if that's something that you could help us out with, we'd love to have you. That's for next year's fund run. If you're not in our text group, here's the information you need. And finally, we're creating a new newsletter that we've been sending out now for the last 2 months. If you're not getting this newsletter, please email me. I want to make sure that you're included on that newsletter so you can check out all the latest happenings here at Wrightsville. All right. Thanks so much.